I'm Katrina. I am with the Chandler Chamber of Commerce. I'm the Special Events and Marketing Coordinator. I want to go ahead and get our panel discussion started today as we have quite a bit of valuable information to get through today. Thank you all for being here in person, and I also want to thank our online viewers for tuning in virtually. Today, we will be hearing from an amazing group of women as they speak to the theme of International Women's Day, embracing equity and touching on gender equity as well as equity and equality. And today's panel is brought to you by the Chamber's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. So thank you for everyone in that committee for helping us to create and develop this event. And of course, this event would not be possible without the support of our incredible sponsors. Thank you, Toyota Financial Services, as well as Intel, Salt River Project, and Wells Fargo. And before we dive into our panel discussion today, I want to introduce our moderator, Olivia Woods. Olivia is Operations Manager for Toyota Financial Services, and she has over 20 years of experience demonstrated in the automotive financial service industry. And she has had a bunch of oversight for phone-based loyalty, lease and department, budget security, vehicle services, and facilities. She's a diversity, equity, and inclusion champion. She's very skilled in customer service. She's a people manager, skilled in strategic planning, as well as business process improvement and customer satisfaction. Please help me welcome Olivia.
Thank you, everybody. I'm so happy to be here. And thank you, Katrina, for that introduction. I'm proud to introduce today's panelists. Our first panelist is Najwa Khazal. She is the General Manager of Service Technology Centuries America with Edwards. Najwa has more than 20 years of experience in delivery of business transformation programs across a range of industries, including energy, aerospace, and automotive in America, China, EMEA, India, and Mexico. Najwa joined Edwards as a general manager for the Service Technology Centers Americas, an organization in April of 2021. Najwa's responsibility for the operational performance and management of 3 manufacturing facilities located in Glen Willow and Hillsborough in the US, Nogales in Mexico, and Sao Paulo in Brazil. Najwa has a broad education, achieving a distinction from the Harvard Business Analytics program, a Master of Business Administration, and a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering Technology. Najwa is a US citizen and is based in Arizona. Welcome, Najwa. Second panelist is Hilen Cruz. She is a Senior Government Relations Representative with Salt River Project. Hilen is bilingual, bicultural, and collaborative individual who understands diversity and the importance of the assertive communication. An individual with strong sense of discipline and respect. Hilen holds a BS in Civil Engineering from the University of Sonora in Hermosillo, Mexico, an MBA from the University of Phoenix, leadership certifications from the Hispanic Leadership Institute and the Chandler Leadership Foundation in Arizona, and an Energy Innovation and Emerging Technology certificate from Stanford University. Hilen has held roles in multiple areas within the electric utility industry in Arizona since 2004. In her current role, she works with city mayors, city managers, and county supervisors in Apache County, as well as the CEOs of Chamber of Commerce and business organizations across Arizona. Hilen is a proud mother of Ximena, correct? Jimena, thank you, my apologies, and Bruno, and she enjoys traveling, hiking, and photography. Our third panelist, and so thank you very much, Hilen. Our third panelist is Ma Lee, co-founder of Asian American Media Network. Coming to America as a teenager in 1992, Ma Lee overcame many great challenges, including language and cultural barriers, to be among the top students receiving full scholarships from ASU. Ma has extensive experience and accolades in radio, film, magazine, and various other digital publications. She is a recipient of the coveted award, including the APCA Champion Award and 2 ANI Awards, the Nationalism Award and the Woman of the Year 2019 Award. In October of 2021, Ma co-founded Asian Media Network, a media company based in Chandler, Arizona, with focus on Asian cultures across the globe via our international platforms, social TV, social media, radio, print, and online media in multiple Asian languages. For the viewers, our goal is to provide a voice for them to share their stories and expand knowledge of their community to audiences they may not be able to reach. So thank you, Ma, for doing this. And our final panelist is Nitasha Chopra. She is the Chief of Staff and Director of Execution Office, Internet of Things Group with Intel. Nitasha is responsible for 600 plus strong global organization, delivering a growing 4 billion product portfolio with an annual product operating budget of 250 million. She is a fierce champion of inclusion and champions diversity and inclusion for her global 2,300 people organization. Since joining Intel as a software engineer in 2005, Nitasha has held various leadership positions in the company. Nitasha is a proud Yellow Jacket who has earned her bachelor's degree in electrical and computer engineering from Georgia Institute of Technology. She is a self-described adventurous who loves exploring the world with her husband and 2 young boys. So welcome, Nitasha. Thank you, ladies, for being here. Our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee has prepared questions for the panel today, but we have all allocated time at the end of the discussion for our audience to ask Q&A. So with that, we're going to jump right into the conversation. So Nitasha, I'm going to start with you. And I think there's a mic over there, so bear with me. What is equity and equality to you, and what is the significance to both?
I think this is International Women's Month, so, happy International Women's Month. I think every day should be Happy International Women's Day. Let's admit that. It's not going to happen, but congratulations and glad to be in this room. Thank you for having me. Thank you for moderating. I think this year's theme is equity, and I think it's a term that people always get confused with equality, and you realize how different they both are. They're used almost interchangeably. And I don't think until you take a moment to ask yourself, I've done this, do I know the difference? It's like the education part of educating yourself. You realize that they're used interchangeably, but they're actually not, right? Equality is making sure everyone's getting equal opportunity, irrespective of where they're coming from, irrespective of their circumstances. They get the exact same support. It's like teachers giving an exam in school. Everyone's getting the exact same exam. It doesn't matter if you're coming from a background where your parents are not helping you learn, or your home environment's very different. Versus equity, where equity to me means bringing the circumstances in the forefront of opportunity. Making sure that people have the opportunity to succeed is what equity means. And for that opportunity to succeed, the support looks very different. The support is not equal for everyone in this room. Instead, it really brings forward their circumstances, their personal circumstances, the environment they grew up in, the intersectionality of gender and race, all that to the forefront. And I think to me, it's very important because for the longest time, I thought equality is what I was standing for. And it wasn't until I started spending time with a lot of other women of color, minorities, and really hearing their stories and understanding that equality was step one, and equity is what's going to help us grow those leaders, grow the next generation. And I think it's not just that we need to educate ourselves, we need to help educate others on what the differences are and why they matter, and why equity is so critical, for us to succeed.
Thank you for that. Thanks for sharing. Ma, I think, my apologies, we have one, so we'll kind of pass the mic as we go through.
It's the same
It's
question.
the same, if you don't mind.
First of all, once again, I want to say thank you, Terry Kimball, for recommend me and invite me to be a part of this panel discussion for the month of Women, International Women Month. And I'm glad to see two gentlemen in this room. And I don't, oh, actually three. Maybe some online that I don't know. But before I start, I just want to give some fun joke to light up the day. And I want to say thank you all for being here. 8 a.m. in the morning, and you have to get up early and be here. So thank you. The joke is that why most men like to say, wish that all women be the same like Siri or Alexa. It's because that the only two women would listen to men and do what they say. Well, the question about equity and equality, and I agree with what Natasha just mentioned. The two terms that easy get confusion. But one thing that I see that we need to have a great balance for both, especially for immigrant people like me, came from America in 1992. My family came here a political refugee, and we come here with nothing beside our luggage, trying to start a new life in America. So to get help from school, from the government at the beginning, during the difficult time as you migrate to the new country, that's the support mean a lot to us. And that's why when we're successful now, we want to give back to the community. And at some point, yes, like in school, and Natasha mentioned, everybody is the same, but there's also some area that you need to provide support for the newcomer, for people with disability, for women go through hardship or have domestic violence. They need to get up to speed and be able to join the workforce again. So there's a lot of support that we need to look into the situation and balancing out, and also make sure that fairness and justice is in place. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And hearing both of you respond to that question, what I appreciate about it, both of you, and I'm sure these ladies, but you get different questions, is that you're educating and trying to bring people along, and the importance of ensuring that, I always say, everybody's in the circle and we're doing what we can to support others. So thank you for those responses. Hilen, so what are some of the differences in attitudes towards women in the workplace in the US versus another country that you've lived in or been in?
That's a tough one.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us today, and thank you for inviting me to be part of this panel. So the difference is I was born and raised in Mexico, and I went to school in Mexico, and I joined the workforce in Mexico for a little bit before coming to the US as an engineer. And so for the time that I was working in Mexico, I was very lucky to work for an institution that was bilingual and bicultural. And so there was a lot of adoption of practices that, international practices of transparency and equality and equity, et cetera. So I was lucky to work in that environment, but that's not necessarily the case everywhere in every organization in Mexico. So if I compare, Mexico is the second most populated country in Latin America. We have over 120 million people, and there's lots of social and economic challenges in Mexico, like there are in the rest of Latin America. But at the same time, I think the government has been making progress, because I do follow, and they have been making progress in establishing laws that are pushing organizations and businesses to treating people equally and with equity. But then there's new challenges, and that's implementation of those laws and accountability to make sure that those laws are really, followed and push those employers and institutions educational institutions to train everybody to kind of move in the same direction. So there's also the cultural challenges in Latin America. You will still see where like maybe some men don't want women to work. And there's that battle too. And so we're growing out of that. I think men are understanding that, there's benefits to, teaming up and working and making progress together as a family or as a community. So those are the types of challenges that I see from my home country. And then, in my country here, we are leaders in implementing and establishing, like the rest of the world is always looking at the US to see what we're doing. And so I think that many countries have modeled those movements to move towards equity and inclusion and equality and all of it. So I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Ms. Najwa, we're going to ask you the same, and I can repeat it because it is a bit lengthy. What are some of the differences in attitudes towards women in the workplace in the US versus other countries you've lived or been to?
Thank you very much. And I second one is thank you very much for being here. This is, I've been in so many different panels, but this has been the first one that we talk about equity. So this is awesome. So kudos to bringing the subject on such an important month like this month. I was born and raised in Jerusalem. When you talk about diversity, that's like the definition of me. I'm a Christian, Palestinian, and an Israeli citizen. You can't get more mixed. 2%, I think of every single one. So I'm very diverse there. So I love where I was born. We're just talking about that. But it is still a culture where there is a male dominance. It's very male dominant. I was lucky to be raised in a family that my mom was a teacher, so she worked. She's actually my role model. My aunt was the first physics graduate in the university. So from my grandparents and there, so that helps, right? And that's why we talk about equity being from different areas and where do we start from, right? So I've been very blessed to have started with a family that is well educated about those things. I've done, as you read in my bio, business all throughout the world in different countries. Yes, women are treated differently. I mean, we have to accept that. And even for us as females going into, say, even in the Middle East, I was just on a vacation in Dubai, and you could see like where the women step a little bit behind, even though at a very modern country, Middle Eastern countries, we're still seeing that. So, just doing business around the world is a challenge because you always have to prove yourself. You always have to earn your place at the table. And then when you're at the table, you are hesitant to speak up because you don't know if your voice is going to be heard. It doesn't matter if it's the same language, but so you're always like trying extra hard. You're worrying, oh my God, are they going to hear it? Are they going to listen? So I think that's the challenge of us doing international is it like, how is the world going to take us? We're advancing, but there's still a lot of education that we need to have. And even here in the US, and I think my most challenge, and I would say, was being an engineer and starting in my career. I was an application engineer manager, and I shared the story is, I answered the phone and I said, application engineering, this is Najwa. And they said, well, can I talk to an application engineer? I was like, I am one, right? And they thought I was the secretary or the reception or the admin. And I said, and he's like, well, I need to talk to a male engineer. And I was like, okay. And I was like 10 years, I don't want to say too old, getting old, but it was I stepped for a little, I said, okay, you know what, fine. So I transferred and I said to an engineer who actually works for me. I said, he was to work to an engineer. And he was fresh and new, and I knew he's there, couldn't troubleshoot, couldn't get the problem. And then all of a sudden, guess who come the call back? And they come back to me and I said, okay, are you ready now to listen? Because I'm here to solve your problem. And as female engineers and as working, again, not just internationally, working in a diverse cultures, in a male dominant, in the old boys club, and all of this, we're starting to change, but those type of conversations, what's gonna help us keep moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. You said something that kind of triggered me is whether it's international or here in the US, and you're having a seat at the table, what are some things that you do or tell yourself or prepare yourself to voice your opinions, your thoughts, strategies, whatever that looks like? What is that for you?
We learned this technique. I don't know if you've heard, it's called the Wonder Woman technique, where you stand up and right before there and like take a deep breath before you get, there is that Wonder Woman technique. But I think I got this. I always tell myself, right? I got this. What's the worst thing gonna happen? Yeah, I mean, when a guy make a mistake, so what? I mean, they're all like even laugh about it and stuff. And I have a sense of humor, so I try to laugh. But when we talk about equity, we are all come from a different background. We have different experiences. We don't know everything. So I go into the room and I don't know everything. I'm not the smartest one in the room. I'm not the know-it-all in the room. So I go in and say, you know what? Somebody's smarter than me. So, I'll just accept it. So I think the message is, I got this.
I like the Wonder Woman thing. You have to do that.
I actually want to add to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's one of the most, I work in tech, I'm an engineer. I love the stories. They're so relatable. Like, oh, can you pass it to an engineer? You're looking at her. and unfortunately for me, like, you actually passed it. I was like, oh, this is where it ends. You get me and I'll solve your problem. But even to talking about, like, if you're, in a room, and I get this question all the time, and I think I experienced that, where your voice is so important and you have to get comfortable with your own voice. It took me, a long time to get to a place where I was comfortable saying, I have an opinion. I need to share it because it's the right thing for the team. I have to stop thinking about me as a woman, me as maybe the least experienced one on the team, women always look at, there's so much data that points on, we look for the one thing we don't know versus the 99 we do. And I think I started getting more comfortable once I started recognizing my voice, agnostic of my gender, agnostic of, all the other things that maybe make me different, and instead started focusing on the problem. Once I got comfortable with, there is a problem everyone's trying to solve, and I have a better solution, or I have a solution that would help the current problem get solved faster, more effectively, I realized that my confidence started building up. And, there is no room that you walk into where people don't have bias. There always will be a bias. There's a bias, we all carry it, on the way I look, the way you look, where you might have come from, how you sound. So it's okay. I kind of ride my bias wave. I'm like, yeah, I'm so glad you're distracted by all the biases, that why I'm here. Now, let me take this part over. Let me get into the zone of being the leader I am, solving the problems that I can solve, bringing my best to a team and adding value. I so would encourage anyone who's listening to it. I love the group of women in the room, but I think this is a lot for the men. Encourage women in rooms where decisions are made. Encourage them to not just be there, but listen to their opinions. Encourage them to speak up. And I think to the women or minorities, of all races and kinds, be comfortable with your voice. Like you said, it's not about right or wrong, but get comfortable with being a part of the team. Don't worry about the 3 things you don't know. Worry about, the 97 that you've got, and get comfortable sharing those. Like, that's what's going to help the room get comfortable. They're going to know your value add. They'll get comfortable with, going from, can I talk to a male engineer to, hey, I'd like Nitasha on the call because, she can probably move this forward faster. But bring that value add, leave everything else behind. It's okay to have those insecurities. We just don't have to project them. So.
Thank you for that, Natasha. So, Mom, we'll go to you. How important is pay equity to improving women's status internationally?
Well, thank you for the question. And before I answer this question, just one comment from the previous one about the international, the differences women in another country versus in the US. And coming from Vietnam and from Asian country, women tend to be permissive, quiet, and especially in the corporate world, they rarely speak up. And I remember when the early year when I graduated from ASU and start work at Intel, and my boss used to tell me, "Mai, you are very smart, but you don't talk that much, and you need to look at me in the eyes." And coming from the culture that is rude to look at people in the eye. So when I talk, I usually look down and he say, "Hey, look at me in the eye." So I train myself and to be able to look straight in the eye, and now that I actually refer that, I'm like, nobody told me that back then in Vietnam. So anyway, now I'm going back to thank Olivia for the question about how important is pay equity to improve women internationally. I think that women need to be paid the same as men, because by getting the same pay, it will help them financially for financial security, also limit the economic opportunity. So by paying the same, women will have more money that they can take care of themselves, their family, and their health, and also for gender inequality, pay different. That's I see that we see every day in our daily life. For example, even you talk about pink tax, the same razor, but if for women is higher, so because the package a little bit nicer and it's higher, and we have to pay man. There's a lot of things, but they say that, for example, with the haircut or shampoo, well, when women with short hair go to the hair salon visit, to the barber, men go out with a haircut only $8, women pay $25 in the same amount. Something that we need to look into that and start our voice, like these forum like this that help us to communicate, to promoting the differences, and hopefully someday that we can make the changes so that men and women equal. Because women, they have to take care of their family, they have to take care of the children, and go to work, and still at work they just like the same like men, but when they come home, they have so many different responsibility. And I feel that like you have job that unnamed but unpaid as a mother. So we need to look into that and get equal pay for all women. Thank you.
Thank you, Mom. Oh, I love that. The barbershop versus. Ms. Natasha, so how do you empower yourself and the women around you?
How do I empower myself? I think as an employee, as a leader, as a manager, empowering others is always front and center for me. And I have to lead by example. So I try to show up in a way that really represents who I am. I try to be very authentic. I'm a big problem solver, so I'll very quickly get into hi, hello, as in what's the problem? But I think empowering others, to me, especially women and minorities, is allowing them to be themselves, creating a safe environment where they can be their authentic self. They don't have to be me, they don't have to sound like me, they don't have to sound like other people in the room, but they have to be very comfortable in expressing who they are and bringing their best ideas forward. And I love Ma's example, if humor is the way you lead, then bring that humor to the team, bring that to the environment you're in. In general, I think empowering women outside of, a working environment, whether, working at the chamber or working in the city or working in technology, I think it's ties to education. Some of the things that I try to do is make sure that girls and women across the board have equal opportunity to be educated. It ties to equal pay, but equal pay only comes from education being front and center. We need to make sure that girls don't stop thinking they're not, qualified for STEM careers by the time they hit 5th grade. It's fine, college, we're focusing on equity and equality. I'm a recent 40-year-old sure, it sounds great, but where's the next generation? I don't want to be in a room full of 99% men and I'm the only woman. I'd like to be in a room like this, but this is where we're making decisions on policy, on products, on revenue, on impact, managing change, managing transformation. But that starts at a much younger level, not necessarily like, hey, we've got a bunch of 40-year-olds together. Now let's see what equity and equality looks like. What does empowerment look like? We need to empower young girls and young women to feel that education is the path forward. The other way I personally feel that we can all empower is by mentoring and sponsoring. All our lives, we've had mentors and sponsors, each and every one of us. I challenge somebody who says they haven't had it. Maybe you have had an invisible sponsor. I came up with this term, some random chat, but it made sense because I was in a room fighting for a cause that I thought was very important. But a lot of those people that were going to get impacted were never going to know because it was because of me, or I was championing the cause. It's a closed door conversation, but the end result and the impact was going to be on a large, population. And those are your invisible sponsors, your invisible mentors, people who are doing the right thing at the right time in a room where decisions are made, in a room where uncomfortable conversations are happening. So we've all had those invisible sponsors and mentors. And I think that's what I call, what is the role that we can all play? But also, there's powerful women in this room that I work with, on a regular basis on our boards and our committees, where I know they go above and beyond to mentor others, to sponsor others. Sponsoring others is the most powerful way you can empower someone, because sponsorship is different than mentoring. And mentoring, you're helping solve their tactical problems. Hey, you got this, you can do this. Mentorship is a great scalable option. I can mentor 45 people in a year if I want to. I can mentor a group. I can mentor, a large room. Sponsoring is making someone believe in potential that they don't think they have. And that takes a lot. I've had sponsors who've said, you can do this. And I've shaken my head like in 400 different directions. Like, I don't think so. You've got the wrong person in mind. But they put your name forward. They put their, commitment towards you. They help you grow. They help you see what you're capable of being. I think that is what women empowerment should be about. We need to help women in whatever they're doing, whether they're stay-at-home moms, or whether they're running, major businesses, or they're trying to, focus in education, our teachers. No matter who they are, we need to help empower them by showing them a path forward to success of what they defined their individual success to be like. Sorry, very long answer.
No, it was a great answer. I was taking my notes in my head, and I really appreciate that you touched in on kind of the differences of like mentorship, sponsorship. And then as well, I think we don't hear it as often, is just bringing along our younger generation of women, girls, to prepare them and let them know that, it's a beautiful thing to be able to be at the table in the STEM program or whatever opportunities that they have. So thank you. Hilen, how do you strive for equity in your business?
That was a great response. I think there's anything else that needs to be said. So striving for equity, I think that you start by listening, whether you're an individual contributor or you're in leadership. If you want to try and push for equity, you have to listen to the challenges that folks are facing as far as, work related or family related or community related. If you listen, you will understand what those challenges are and what they're facing, and then you'll be able to brainstorm and think, okay, well, what are the actions we need to take to bring equity to the picture, to the table? Because if, it goes between equality and equity, what we were talking before, like you cannot just bring the same solution for everybody. You need to understand what the challenge is, and then seek for those solutions that will make sense for the particular needs. And so how we have a wonderful diversity and inclusion department at SRP. It was established a few years ago. And so there are a lot of programs going on. This is a large corporation. So there's equity programs going on for employees, probably fall more into like the mentorship side and the sponsorship when it's about education, but then that leads you to, if you are one person that is in need of equity or in need of something by attending those programs, I think you can then follow and reach out to whoever you need to try and solve the problem that you have. So I think it starts by education, by the ability of listening to what those challenges are.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I feel like the start is listening, and sometimes that's difficult for sure. Najwa, so my next question for you is how can someone actively support and embrace equity within their own sphere of influence?
Oh, good answer. In our own sphere of influence, I think that invisible coach and invisible sponsor. Throughout my career, I always said every day is an interview, right? You meet someone and you just, you're talking to them and you're like, oh, I want this person on my team, right? And I want this one. And it's the same thing on the day-to-day is like, what impact do I have today, right? And what did I do different when my kids were growing? So I have a boy and a girl. I know that's not in my profile, and they are different. They're both. So when we talk about equity, I try to have equality between them, but the equity side I struggle because I'm a woman, and I understand my daughter, so I try to relate to her, and then I have my son. And he's like, you don't get me. And I said, okay, I'm gonna go talk to Baba, Dad. Yeah, so I'm gonna go talk to Dad. And you feel like, I get disappointed, right, for all the guys here, your dad. I'm like, well, but I'm a problem. So I want to solve my son's problem. And I think that's even in your sphere at home, is you try to do this equality, even in your own house, from your own frame of mind. And for us as leaders, we need to do more education for ourselves to understand, even though we read all these articles, we sit on panels, we say the right things, but when you're in the midst of something, it goes back to your frame of mind. You go back to how you were raised. You go back, like I treat my daughter sometime, and she's like, well, you treat Emilia differently. And I'm like, no, I don't. So yeah, you do. And I think of her as like, I worry more about her as a girl and then than my son, and I shouldn't because I'm a strong woman. And I think that starts from the house and start from our community and start where we're at. And the more as leaders we get educated on this topic, the more we can actually become more impactful in our own sphere of equality and equity.
That's a great answer. You ladies got this. Ma, as a leader, what are some mottos you try to live by, or what is your leadership style?
Thank Olivia again for the good question. For me, I believe in the supporting each other and work as a team. For me, teamwork is everything. So at Asian American Media Network, although you hear the name, you thought probably our employee, they are Asian, but actually it's a diverse group. We have African American, we have our IT director is Caucasian, and we have like all different Asian ethnic group in our organization, representing for each like Chinese, Vietnamese, Korean, Philippine, Thai, etc. So my style of leadership is to embrace diversity and inclusion. We have, every time when we have staff meeting, and we always, have some of the staff that share for their culture. Something we learn, because majority of people look at Asian. If you are non-Asian, you think all Asian the same. We are Chinese, but actually it's different. Vietnamese, Korean, or Thai, or Chinese, or Philippines, we have our similarity, but also some uniqueness, the differences, so that we learn from each other. And I also believe in communicate effectively, set the clear expectation and follow through, so that how we be able to hold accountable for the responsibility when the assignment were due, and also to help learning and lead by example. So at our Asian Media Network, I entered to the field that man dominant. So because in the production world, especially film, editing and all that, it's actually a man dominant job. And I remember my partner, he looked at me in the eyes and he said, well, Mai, if you want to be a CEO of Asian Media Network, you need to learn how to film, editing yourself, upload it, and do all of that by yourself. I will respect to work for a CEO like that. He challenged me. And like we have a meeting, let's start a meeting, and he challenged me that. And I said, I commented, yes, I've been doing this. However, being the CEO is not about learning everything and be the expert of that. That's what I depend on my team. That's what we're hiring an expert to do an editor, somebody who do film, and someone else be a talent. And I'm at the CEO. I go out and I make contract and bring in business, and this is what the team for. I need to know a little bit about things, but I don't need to be an expert of everything. So then the whole team, they actually agreed with what I said. And he was a little, disappointed at that time, but then later on he said, Mai, I think you're right. Because I said, it took you how many years for you to learn and become a camera, expert at what you do, and you're very good with technology and all that. But for me, I don't need to know like all the detail. I just need to know the high level, so that with the whole team, we can work. Each one is a specialist of one field, and we connect it like the dot together, so we provide the best program or product for our customer. So yes, women, even in nowadays society, men always look at us as like we're not capable, or we're not take the job serious, Yes, women, although we are calm outside, we represent for beauty, for look, but don't underestimate us. We can be more powerful than you think. So that's why recently I watched this movie, and I highly recommend all of you to watch this. That's called The Woman King. I love that movie. Oh my God. And I watched it on the way to London and Madras, and on the way back, and I watched that movie, and I went, wow, it's such a powerful message to all the women that we can do things just like men. We can protect men as well. So thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mai. Thank you for that. Natasha, I'll ask you the same question. I'm going to ask each of you the same questions, and then we'll get into Q&A. As a leader, what are some mottos you try to live by, or what leadership style do you have?
Thank you. I think it's always hard following up. Great examples. I have two boys. I have an 8 and a 9-year-old. So, our household is full of superhero stuff. We're literally, the only way I get anything done is if I do an Iron Man moving around. And very similar to your Woman King. When I was younger, I used to say I was Iron Man to my parents, and it was like, well, it's a man, and you need to find a different role model. So as I had kids, I bought myself an Iron Man suit because they would relate to it. And I made them do things. It's so effective. But in the Iron Man thing, as they got older, they were like, hey, you're a girl. You cannot be Iron Man. I was like, well, you're looking at Iron Man, and they were both so confused about it. She does have this suit, she has powers, you know. So I totally like the challenge of, you know, stereotypes and gender stereotypes that come with our roles. Leadership, my favorite topic. I would say, let's imagine the visual. What do you think of a leader to look like? You know, you see a poster of a leader, it's usually a man in a suit, you know, very powerful, telling everyone what to do. Another common visual of leadership is, you know, a man on top of a mountain pulling up other people. They're, you know, solving a problem. You know, focused man. Usually that's what leadership looks like. My leadership style is sort of challenging both of them. I remember taking this social media post that someone had put a really nice quote on a man crossing his hand, you know, sharing a quote at the bottom. And I remember doing some little artwork. I gave her some hair, you know, put some lipstick on her and said, this is what leadership should look like. We can't keep saying we need more female leaders or more diverse leaders, but, you know, put a poster and a quote that is very much not representative of the leaders we want to create. So that's the first thing. I think I would say my leadership style is one that says challenge the status quo. Sure, there's biases. Sure, there's always going to be that. Maybe we live in a society where we're going to continue to grow, but remember how hard things were for women 20 years ago. I mean, I've been in the industry for 17, 18 years, and I remember how hard they were when I started my career and how much better they've gotten. And yes, there's a long way to go, but you have to remember where we're coming from and how much work has been done to get here and how much you carry on your shoulders to pay it forward. So that's very important to me. The second leadership style, I think, ties very much to, you know, managing teams and building products and being an engineer is I try to be at the bottom of the mountain. So the visual for me is, am I at the bottom helping my team move forward? And traditionally, I think my leadership style is very servant leadership. I don't necessarily think leadership is that I need to be at every table, in every meeting, in every room where decisions are being made. Especially if I have a team, you know, very much to your point, like I don't need to be an editor. There are people who are way qualified than I am to do a certain job. If I'm getting involved, that means I have something better to offer. I'm more qualified or I'm a better problem solver. So I go to places where there are problems that my experts or a team of experts is unable to solve. That's my leadership, is really looking at myself and adding value to areas where there's gaps and problems. Not necessarily like I need to be the omnipresent voice in every decision that's made. And I do that by empowering my team, you know, building their confidence, making them realize, you know, they've got this. One of the other visual I'll leave you with is, you know, when you give somebody a task once, it's like they're lifting a rock up. The first time I give a new task, hey, would you do this? It's like, okay, I have to learn, I have to figure this out. It's an uphill task of moving a rock up a mountain. My job as a leader is to take that visual and convert into a visual where they're juggling these rocks. Slowly, they build the confidence that I've got this, it's not a rock lifting uphill, it's very easy. You know what, give me a couple more, I think I can do this. It's because they have the capability and confidence, and I've empowered them, I support them. I'm the one saying, if you drop a rock, I got you. But that's the leadership style that I think it's very important, not just for women, but also for, you know, minorities, because they always carry that self-doubt. And, you know, we need to remind them that they've got it and we're there to support them, you know, as they continue to grow in whatever challenges and tasks and opportunities they want to pursue. Like, you know, women don't pursue opportunities. We just need to show them that they need to go after what they think they deserve, where they can do it and have that attitude of mistakes happen. I love what you said. You know what? Everyone makes mistakes. Nobody blinks a second time when a man makes a mistake. So let's just get used to the fact that we're going to make lots of mistakes, and good leaders are the ones that make sure, you know, you fall from the lower branches of the tree, not from the top. One of my sponsors taught me this a long time ago, and he put me in some situations where I thought I wasn't capable of delivering the task. And he was like, this is a small branch. You fall from it, I got you. But I need to build your confidence and climbing the smaller branches and falling from them. So one, you know what a fall looks like and feels like. And two, you're not afraid of falling. And I think as a good leader, I try to do that to my team, is making sure I build that confidence. So if it's uphill rock, it's falling from the lower branches, because I do want them to climb those big branches and, be fully empowered and eliminate my job. A good leader's job is to make sure you're not needed. And I certainly hope my team doesn't need me all the time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, okay, so I'll build onto that. I think that I like empowering and I like helping build confidence and trust. And I'll tell you a quick story. When I was maybe 28 or 29, and I was a distribution designer, or an engineering department head at the end. So I had an experience with a person once that was kind of difficult, in the sense that I didn't feel that they trusted me or had trust in the work that I was doing. So I figured that I was just gonna build that confidence and that trust. And from the day I identify the issue, I figure I'm gonna start talking to this person and I'm gonna show that we're talking the same language and we have the same capacity. And at the end of the day, this person was the first one to say, congratulations on your promotion, when I got a promotion after that. And so it's having those conversations and giving yourself that opportunity and giving others that opportunity to build that confidence and that trust in others and in themselves. And so that's how you also work in building those teams that collaborate and that at the end of the day, get the work done, because the goal is to get the work done wherever we are. So we have to do it effectively, we have to do it efficiently, but there's gotta be that communication. And through that communication, that's how everything else gets put together. And so that's how I work around my leadership, and whether it's individual contributor or whether you are in a supervisory position, I think that you're leading regardless, because you may not have folks under you, but you have projects and you're leading people that are collaborating with you in those projects. Then same thing at home with the kids, you're leading, their paths, and there's gotta be brainstorm sessions. I want my daughter to ice skate. Well, what if she wants to do gymnastics? Well, we have to figure it out. Or my son, if he doesn't want to do this anymore. So, okay, what are we gonna do now? And try to help them lead where they want to go to. So it applies in every environment. So,
Thank you.
thank you. Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. So I say I'm a visionary leader, and I'll give a story that actually a real life story that just happened. But overall, I always say I'm a fair and firm. And I think this is great to kind of relate it to today. I'm fair because I want to give the right opportunity, right? I always say I never fire anyone. They fire themselves. And that's something that's always been, because I can sleep well at night if somebody's no longer with the company, because I know I was fair. I gave them all the opportunities. So when we talk about equity, it's not that equal opportunity employer. That's great. We all have that title at the bottom of our applications, right? But it's being fair, right? If I listen and somebody needs an opportunity, the extra time, if I have a timeline, and they say we have, it's a family issue, or I have some disability that I'll need to take more time, whatever the situation is. So I gotta be fair, but I also gotta be firm as a leader, and as women, that gets translated differently. You're aggressive, you're vocal, you're this. No, we are firm when we will say something, and once we come into an agreement, we gotta hold, just like I hold myself accountable, I hold my team accountable. So that's where the fair and firm, because they know I lead from my heart sometimes, and I love people. I'm a people person, people leader. So I will do anything for my team. And that relates back to the trust you mentioned. Then they'll do everything for me and my customer, our customers, and our there. So that's where the fair and firm comes from. But vision leaders, I think, just to share a story, we are building, if you've driven on Germany, and I always I say, I'm really sorry if you went through the traffic. It's not my fault, it's the developer fault that we still have the median not completed. But we're building a big 200,000 square foot, dealing with subcontractor. I have so much appreciation and respect for civil engineers, electrical engineer. I'm mechanical. I always thought we're the best, right? But then this project taught me a lot. But from a vision leader, we're going through a lot. We have all these challenges, and I'm standing right there, and I'm still the cheerleader. Like, come on, guys, we gotta do this, ladies. We gotta do all of this. And it's just, stress level is high. I'm not getting, and one day during my reflection session, I'm reading the story, and it's about this king in a kingdom, and there's the kingdom was beautiful. And then there is this drought period that came in. And so he called everybody to start digging for water. And he was like, come on. And they worked around the clock, and they're taking turns, and they're digging, they're tired, they don't have water, it's hot. And, and then he's like giving up. So he asked his advisor, and he said, what am I not doing? And he said, well, why don't you tell them and give them the vision and tell them what the result of this digging would be? So, okay, so the king come in and got all of the team and said, all the people, and said, can you imagine our kingdom, how it was with the green grass, with the fruits, with all of this? And everybody's like, started imagining that. And he showed them what the end looked like, the beautiful result of what they're doing. Everybody went to work, and within a few hours they were digging, they got to the bottom where the water is. And I think as leaders, this is that was a really great lesson for me, because we always say, okay, we have a timeline, we have targets, we have this, but to draw this picture as a visionary leader, to say what that would look like in the future, that to me, and I did the same thing with my team, and we're getting through obstacle by obstacle and get where it's at. So to me, that's really being visionary is critical.
Ladies. So now we want to take this opportunity for any Q&A for any of these fabulous ladies. I know there's some questions out there.
I don't know if any of you have read Julia Borstein's book called When Women Lead, but it's an incredible book. And I know some of you have touched on this, but especially it's interesting with the pandemic, watching how different female-driven leadership styles have benefited companies. I wonder if some of you could talk to what you see as unique female leading styles that benefit your employees, and how it might be a little different than what we've talked about, this stereotypical male leading styles.
It's a great book. I second that. I'm a little bookworm, so I carry one of those around all the time. I think the pandemic is where we saw the role that women play both at home and also at work. And I'll give you an example. I lead an engineering team that builds product. We build products from concept all the way to where you see it in your hand, and we take it to our customers. And it's a very large global team. At that time, it was close to 2,400 people globally across US, Central America, Asia, some places in Europe, a very diverse set. And building a product means you're going into a lab, you're going into a factory. Yes, some work can be done remote, but a lot of our workforce was used to going in, collaborating, brainstorming, and a product comes out. That's when we saw that we had the biggest challenge we had to change the mindset. Now we're all of a sudden doing a lot of things virtually or remote, but also we're doing these while managing our challenges at home, sick parents, losing family members, the stress of just knowing there's a pandemic out there. I'm one of those people, my family is spread around the globe, and a lot of, my teammates, people in my organization, leaders in my organization had a similar situation. So now we're building a product, which we know is very critical to our business because we need to bring in the revenue during an environment of unparalleled challenges that are not just physical, like how do we build it? So we had to solve the physical problem, like how do we move a product or change it without being in the lab? How do we do that while we're trying to juggle the personal challenges, not just for women, for minorities, people with families spread around the world, loss of life. While doing all of this, our engagement in our team during COVID, we get an employee engagement score. Our employee engagement scores at the beginning of COVID were, I would say 78%. But during COVID, a year after COVID, they shot up to 92%. We're one of the highest performing organizations at Intel. And we never missed a single milestone. We built all our products during COVID in the most effective manner without saying we need any delays, no misses there. How did we do it? We did one of the things that I think people struggle during crisis. Leaders want to go solve all the problems. My recommendation and what we did with our organization was we told our leaders, we told our managers, there is no mandate that we're going to put together as a leadership that everyone has to implement. So my team in Malaysia, my team in India, or my team in Oregon are all bound by the same mandate. Like no meetings at this time so people can take care of their families. And say, well, that doesn't work because in Malaysia, they don't do family dinners, they do lunches. They need to pick up their kids from school. Same for India. While in the US, 3 o'clock is golden hour for working parents. They're like, gotta get the kids home, do dinner. I'm not doing any mandates. Instead, I put together guidelines that enabled our managers to utilize in a small setting of 6, 8 people that they manage to see what is the best way that they can address the issues of each and every person. So I think, being a female leader in that situation, there was a lot of male leaders who had great ideas, but the idea that I think I put forward that really transformed, and I think we got a lot of feedback from the team that was very useful, is that we didn't say, hey, we're solving all your problems, and we're doing that by creating these mandates for you. Instead, we empowered people to say, you can solve your own problems, work with your managers, figure out what you need. Like Nitasha needs to not be working between 3 and 5 because that's her golden hour. You do that, people will take care of their work. They all want to contribute. They all want to add value. We know where our deadlines is. Don't create artificial deadlines and mandates because you think you're trying to help us. So I think the difference in leadership styles of women versus men can be apparent in some ways in which we're more tied in to the human aspect of being an employee because we know how to juggle. I certainly think I know how to juggle work, family, friends, crises, all that stuff as a single parent. What I don't like is when I have to juggle it based on expectations others have or mandates others have created. So the best way, I think, the reason why female leadership is so important is because they put together a human aspect that allows, employees and teammates to build things in a way that's most effective. And I think we've seen that at least in some of the examples that happened over COVID. So no mandates, instead empowering everyone to do what's best for them at their individual level, at a small team level, to realize that we had amazing results. I think people thought we did something extremely transformational. We're like, no, we just left everyone alone. I know it sounds so bizarre, but leaving everyone alone was the golden, because now they can juggle the 500 things they have to juggle without me telling them how to juggle it.
Thank you so much for that.
Thank you guys all for being here. So my question, all of you guys have touched on in some sort of way, is, every culture comes with its own cultural baggage. And so Ali Hisri, who's a Somali immigrant, who's parliamentarian over Scandinavia, she's written several books. The main theme of her book is how she's had to navigate her own culture and the diaspora that's come with her in navigating these things. So my question is sort of, what responsibility do you guys feel to your own sort of cultures, where you guys come from, now that you're here in America and those, assimilation happens? And then, how do you guys navigate that sort of?
I'll let you too. All right, that's a great question. First, the language. For me, it's a language. So I've been raising my two kids to speak Spanish at home, and I found a school that does bilingual education, dual immersion here in Chandler, which is wonderful. And I've seen how being bilingual and bicultural has helped me in my career path and keeps helping me. And I think that with the culture, I think you said baggage, but I will say benefits. You know, when you have the exposure to other cultures, you know, you learn that much more, and you learn that much more about respect and tolerance for the ways of others. And so I think that it has been super valuable for me to come with the accent and, you know, the bilingualness, the biculturalness, and you know, passing that on to my kids is very important to me, and also to the community when it's possible to do it. So participating in forums, in programs, and things that enable others to learn about my culture, I think that's very important, because also, you know, I'm from Mexico, we're neighbors, we're not gonna stop being neighbors. And so there's a lot of influence back and forth. So when I lived in Mexico, there was a lot of influence of the American culture, especially in the northern part of Mexico. Same thing here in the southern part of the United States, that's bordering with Mexico, there's a lot of Mexican influence. We see it every day. So I think that, you know, using the teachings of my culture, my original culture, has helped me in my career, big deal. There's that empathy, there's that, you know, caring in different ways. To give you a quick, like super easy example, like we're huggers. So I bring that with me, and I think that helps me connect with people a lot faster, even if they're not from my culture.
And we have them, and so. I didn't share too that when I went to get married, I actually married somebody from Guatemala. So here is one more diversity, if you want. And it's bicultural, right? I think to answer to your question, we become bicultural. And by that, I think that's a strength, because it's just the empathy. You put, you know, you remember the day where, you know, your husband cooked a meal and you just did not like it. And you don't go and say, oh, this is disgusting, right? You say, it's different. You learn. And that's an example of how you start having a more acceptance of how other cultures are, because you in yourself, in your own house, you are bicultural.
Thank you. I know we have one more question here, and then I will get to the last one online.
Hi, thank you. This has been wonderful. I was wondering, because following up on Brian's question about culture, I was raised in a culture where girls were taught you can't do just about anything. So I spent a lot of time pretty much like trying to undo all of that. And I was wondering, I mean, and it's wonderful to hear about being supportive of women in your workplace, but is there ever competition, and how do you, amongst women, because they're competing for maybe like small spaces, how do you handle that while you're trying to support them?
I think there's this quote, right? There's a special place in hell for women who don't support other women. I can make that up. It's there. I stand by it.
Elmer Roosevelt.
I've been places where other women didn't support me, and I remember all of them. I've been in so many places where men didn't support me, and I really don't remember them. But the time where I thought it was a chance for someone else to lend me a hand, but instead they gave me their back, I remember those vividly, and I remember them hurting. I remember them being painful. They shattered my confidence. They made me second guess myself, all that stuff. So I think I take the room in which there are other women, that responsibility very seriously, because maybe I've experienced, and I think we all have experienced it at some level. How do you do it? How do you encourage? How do you support? I used to think that everyone wants to grow. Everyone wants to have their voice heard. Everyone wants to get to the next level because maybe those are things I wanted. What I have learned, and this is the part of, we're always learning and educating ourselves. I'm a much different person than I was 2 weeks ago. I'm always learning and understanding, challenging my bias, helping myself be a better person, a better leader, a better team member. What I've learned from a lot of the women is that we all have our own goals, our own aspirations, our own definition of success, our own definition of happiness. And the best thing that I can do is enable those, is not get in their way, instead show them a path forward. So I think for all the women in this room, next time you come to a panel, bring a man along, because I always say this, we already know all this. We need the other gender to know this and experience this. So when I go to panels full of women, it's like, maybe you should be on the panel because you can do this better than I can, and we know it. But let's support the women. If we take that goal of saying, we're going to go find everyone, one person we can mentor. It could be your friend's, 14-year-old girl. It could be somebody you work with. We can all use mentors, we can all use guides. And I think being in a room full of other women who need your support, offer it, because you'll realize that it empowers you, it empowers them, because they're going to go in another room and do the exact same thing, because now they know what being supported by another woman feels like. I, in 17 years, have never had a female manager of my career. And almost equally, short list of mentors I can call are female. So I think taking that responsibility and passing it along and saying, I can do it for one other person. So it becomes just commonplace. We get comfortable with women in powerful roles, supporting other women loudly, clearly, proudly, not worrying about, are you going to get my spot? There's enough room. Do not worry. If there's not, I will pull the chair forward. So there's 2 seats now. But get comfortable with that idea. I think it's something that it's so important for us all to do. Not worry. There's enough, enough opportunities to go around.
And I also would like to comment after. That's a very excellent question. And throughout my life, I always have dealing with the problem that women, that jealousy. They're jealous that because of your success, or they jealous because of everything. So I to deal with that is first of all, I remember there was a saying that if people who like you, you don't need to explain because they understand. People who don't like you, no matter what you explain, they still not understand. And they demand, they keep asking, find any little thing that they can pick out on. So if you can try to talk, and if they seem like still not understand and still target you and talk bad behind you, or go on social media and say all kind of stuff, just be silent, because quiet and silent sometimes is the more powerful thing to do. That hold your anger. Sometimes when you so upset and you respond right away, and at that moment you might not think objectively, and you put your emotion into that, and later on you might regret. So we're not saying anything. However, you show by your action. If people think that you like that, but your action is not like that, like what they said, and that's how you win from the other people. They look at the way you carry yourself. Yeah, I mean, we deal with that. But then also the other thing I would do is to lead that group. You need, life is short, to be surrounded with people who love you, embrace you, and supporting you, and you were supporting them. Why keep in the relationship, toxic relationship, that it ruin your life and it negative? So thank you.
Thank you, Mike. We have one question from one of our online viewers. Does anyone have a specific book, magazine, podcast, or maybe another educational tool or technique that you recommend to the audience members to continue their learning and influence, or to continue their learning?
You guys, they're like, go ahead.
I'll tell my weakness is being vulnerable. So I like this author, she does podcast, Brene Brown. She really talks about authentic leadership. She's my imaginary sponsor. She just doesn't know it yet. But her books are very much their target, being yourself, being authentic, expressing yourself, being vulnerable in your personal life, in your professional lives, and seeing, what that result looks like. And I think I would say, if you're thinking of whatever you are in your life, you're listening online in the room. If you haven't read her books, they're wonderful reads. They're very easy. They're very relatable. I can practice pretty much all of them, anytime I'm in a room. So I would say I'd encourage those of you who find that vulnerability being a challenge. It's a great one.
Thank you.
I love her books. Well, I'll just share. Recently, I'm reading the latest book from Michelle Obama, and I'm finding it very entertaining and very deep. I really like her message of, believing in yourself. You got these, and talking, your inner voice out of out of control. And so I'm enjoying that one. So I'll just leave with that.
You sure?
So I want to respect everybody's time and thank you to our amazing panelists for being here today to discuss how they continue to embrace equity. I think we were privy to a lot of valuable information. Any further questions can definitely be submitted to the chamber team, and they will be directed to these panelists that we have. Thank you again to our sponsors for making this event possible and supporting our diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. Toyota Financial, Intel, SR or Salt River Project, and Wells Fargo. There is an evaluation survey that will be sent to you after the program. Please fill it out and let us know what you want to see in our upcoming roundtables. Thank you all for being here and enjoy the rest of your day.
And one more thing before all of you leaving today, that look at this. It's a workshop that where men will work and women will shop.